Welcome everyone. My name is Sharon Smith. I work in Global Project Implementation. I'm here with the rest of my team, Nesar Ahmed, Kaylene Homer, Alex Gilbert, Danielle Saldana, and Gabrielle Salgado. I know you are interested in hearing about a project launch in Russia. Let's get to it. We'll jump right into the cultural dimensions. In a country like Russia, taking into consideration Hofstede's cultural dimensions is an important step. There are striking differences between Russia and the U.S., with 4 out of 6 dimensions showing a variation between 49 to 55%. Russians value relationships and taking time to build them and top-down decision-making. The formation of relationships is the single most important step when negotiating with Russians. While this can often be bypassed in the U.S., where there are enforceable contracts, this is crucial in Russia. Establishing a relationship can best be done in informal settings, since negotiations within the boardroom tend to carry a formal tone. While in the U.S., discussions start with the details and finish with a final agreement, it is the opposite in Russia. The most important thing is to establish trust with time and to come to a general agreement of the contract. Appealing to the facts may be fruitless, as emotional appeals are much more important. Now, looking at global business culture skills, Americans are balanced in communicating their views, whereas Russians use the most explicit forms, leaving very little to ambiguity. Evaluation and disagreement are similar. Americans are more balanced in approaches to accepting of negative feedback. Russians, on the other hand, are very proud, both politically and culturally, and negative feedback is taken seriously and should only lightly be used in business interactions. Both countries are similar where they may be late to a meeting to exert power as a negotiating tactic, but if the meeting is in Russia, visitors should always be punctual. Overall, a business person from the U.S. will likely have to exercise extra levels of patience in dealing with Russian counterparts. As the meetings can take unpredictable turns, the advanced preparation has to be flawless. All facts should be backed up with supporting related documentation. Bargaining strategies and tactics. Negotiating in Russia is fairly new. Most people, when negotiating, will avoid haggling. They are patient and are not easily rushed into making quick decisions. Russians may view giving in to requests from the other side as weakness unless something that is a more than adequate trade-off is given in return. Misleading statements and information are tactics commonly used in Russian negotiations. Russians overall have the strength of steadfastness, genuineness, and trustworthiness once a deal is made. They prefer to deal in groups rather than on an individual level. So for recommendations, there will need to be some give and take through the process. Do not give too much up front, as maybe more may be expected as the process continues. Some of the tactics they may use are feigning ignorance, lying, and acting indifferent. Be prepared to do fact-checking. Establish a relationship with individuals and corporate groups before doing business. And a reliable translator will be a great advantage. After the fall of the Soviet Union in the 1990s, Russia adopted Western economic philosophies by becoming a democratic and federative republic. Russia's government is divided into 3 independent branches: legislative, judicial, and executive. The executive branch is maintained by President Vladimir Putin. The legislative branch is divided into Federal Council of Russia and the Federal Assembly. The judicial branch has 115 Supreme Court justices. Russia also has Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin and First Deputy Prime Minister Andrei Belousov to assist in Russia's diplomacy efforts and implementing the president's policies. In recent years, President Vladimir Putin has launched aggressive attacks on the Crimean Peninsula. As a result, the United States has tried to restrict international business opportunities for Russia in retaliation. Rule of law index scores. The country has worked to enhance property rights, even though cases of corruption within the government lower the average score. On the government side, the EFI score for tax burden ranks significantly higher than the world average, with a high score on fiscal health being highly competitive. On regulatory efficiency, there have been solid improvements on the bureaucracy and management of utilities, ensuring businesses have lower costs. And business freedom score is substantially higher. Recent international economic sanctions on powerful Russian citizens and entities have somewhat restricted monetary freedom within the country. An open market. The government has substantial oversight in the Russian private marketplace, making trading and investment activities more difficult to work with. Russia finds itself in the unique circumstance of rushing towards capitalism to remain economically competitive on a world scale, but also dragging with it some past economic culture related to the previous economic regime of the Soviet Union. As we can see, Russia's greatest EFI strengths are fiscal health, tax burden, and business freedom, whereas their weaknesses are financial freedom and investment freedom. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union and the embrace of capitalistic market tendencies by Russian culture, the government has more positive attitudes towards policies that spur business development. Considering the pros and cons, businesses in Russia stand to benefit from a favorable corporate tax setup with a low corporate income tax that maxes out at 20%. The ownership of property and the ease of ability to properly register said ownership makes for ripe investment opportunity in real estate. It is prudent to be cautious when partnering with Russian-based persons or entities, as those who possess minority ownership of property and/or companies lack many protections that are commonplace in other large world economies. Understanding the complexities associated with cross-border trade, particularly regarding border compliance of goods exported out of Russia, is imperative. This can be mitigated by exporting almost exclusively to countries that have a free trade agreement with Russia. Regarding these unique regulatory circumstances, our recommendations are as follows. We need to employ a Russian-based attorney who will assist in development and review of any contract into which the company looks to enter, and we should strongly consider maintaining a majority ownership interest in any venture into which we enter. We need to keep detailed records and schedules to ensure the proper filing of business registration documents and any other compliance paperwork. Ensure the proper filing and payment of necessary taxes with the help of a local accountant firm. Lastly, and probably most importantly, we need to develop a product that is either ideal to be consumed within Russian borders or a product designed to be exported to countries with which Russia shares an FTA, such as the countries within the Eurasian Economic Union or possibly China. Russia belongs to the Eurasian Economic Union, an FTA created on January 1, 2015, helping the country to expand the way that tariff provisions cover certain services, and also helping the country to establish standards of labeling requirements for goods between the countries that integrated. Until 2019, Russia had higher tariffs on agricultural and non-agricultural products when compared to the United States. For example, high tariffs on animal products producing strong pricing competition in agricultural products and thereby allows Russia to add stronger tariffs to products to keep pricing competitive overall, but on the other hand, products like cotton that has 0 MFN applied duties can have a lower pricing competition. FDI is when a foreign company's investment exceeds 10% equity. Foreign investors are not permitted to own land that is located along the country's borders, nor in sensitive territories or regions that might relate to national security. Properties can be leased for limited periods of time. Incentives are not fully developed, but there has been governmental focus on creating business tax reductions. Some exemptions may include adjusted customs, standardized import VAT, and reduced income taxes on corporate profits. Political corruption is the biggest risk, and some countries have put a stop on all significant trade with Russia. Russia does offer the potential for strong returns on investment. However, with high reward comes the possibility for high risk. Now on to household income. Russia is the largest country in the world based on its area. The Russian household income stands at $5,884 in 2020. The country GDP has contracted 2.799% year over year in December 2020. However, all of these look to be a result from the pandemic, and the country is poised to make a strong comeback. Now is a good opportunity if we can get in there to start the operation. 2016 was the culmination of a 2-year financial crisis. The country rebounded only after the government took ownership of 60% of productive assets. From 2017 to 2019, the United States enacted 52 policy actions against Russia. Investors became less interested as there arose clear potential for volatile market changes and made it hard for Russians to borrow from abroad. Russia has experienced volatile swings in their economy and currency. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic will continue to impact their economy over the next 12 months. Coupled with this, the U.S. President Biden increased sanctions almost immediately upon taking office in January 2021. This was done as a show of force and will undoubtedly impact the Russian economy. Now on to the first of 3 product suggestions. Auto parts. The largest manufacturer of auto in Russia is joint venture between Russia and Renault Group. The OEM parts for these cars are expensive for the regular drivers. For our first product, we will manufacture aftermarket auto parts in China and import them back into Russia. Future FTA planned between the 2 countries will make this less expensive, and we will be able to mark up the product with higher profit margins. The close proximity of the countries will make the freight costs less expensive as well. Our second product is contact lenses and glasses. Russia has a large population with poor eye health, which is higher than European countries. Children are spending more time on devices and computers for school and at home. In the past, people would forego seeing an eye doctor as it was inconvenient and not a priority. The government and current companies in Russia have campaigned to increase awareness to change the culture. There are several companies in the market today, but there is still much room for growth. Online makes it easier to order, especially for millennials and younger who prefer contact lenses. To compete with the current competition, we would start online and target 40 and younger. Once we have local connections, we can pivot to selling with optometrist offices. A small, quickly built cabin, better known in Russia as a dacha, could fill a need in an underserved market by providing a place to make it easier to bring family and friends together. Our competitive advantage would be in importing steel and using Russian timber that would result in lower costs. There are restrictions on larger homes, but building a small dacha would have little or no restrictions. Cultural sensitivity geared around traditions, weather, local customs, and architecture will need to be taken into consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our presentation. I thank you for your time and attention.